Adele, hello! Thank you so much for your time and welcome to our channel.
Thanks for having
I'm so
me.
happy you're here. Congratulations about your new show. It's called Oh My God, Yes! A series of extremely relatable circumstances, which is available in Adult Swim, and we're watching it here in Spain on Max.
Yes, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
so much. It's been quite a ride.
I wanted to ask you about the ride because I've seen that the pilot actually aired in 2023. So how was the process so long to get the show out there?
Oh, yeah. So, to your point, the pilot aired in 2023, and Adult Swim, they have their own way of doing things. They're the cool kids club for a reason. They follow the rules, but they also break them. And so once the pilot aired, I had to write an additional script. They wanted to get a sense of like where the show would go from there. And then we put together a mini room. It was myself and three other writers, and we wrote the first half of the season. And then Adult Swim decided they needed another room. And we had three more writers come in and we wrote the second half of the season. And then they finally decided to greenlight it. And so that took, about another year?
Okay, so it took quite some time.
But production as well. I mean, not just the writing, but, the production, the storyboarding, the character designing, the animating. So
If you could... sorry.
That's okay.
If you could describe the show in one sentence to someone who hasn't seen it yet, what would you say?
I would describe it as a wild, random, layered Sex in the City in the hood in the future.
Oh my God, I love it.
That's what I would do.
It's so accurate though.
Yes, that's yeah, I think that's
the vibe.
Yeah, for sure.
So what inspired you to create this show? Can you talk about the process of coming up with the concept and why did you feel like it was a good time to put it out, and what was behind it?
Well, the timing wasn't up to me. I mean, if it was, it would have come out sooner. But I feel like the timing has worked out. And it was inspired by a conversation I was having with a friend of mine about someone I was dating at the time, who, when we first met, he was like quite an angel. He was like really great. And he just turned out to not be an angel. He turned out to kind of suck. And I was having a conversation with her and I was saying, I really wish I could date the version of him that he was when we first met. And I often refer to this person that shows up early on in the dating stages as our representative. They kind of represent the ideal version of ourselves, like the version of us that's pretty perfect, but then like 6 months in, you realize that they're not. And so that idea, this representative, I took that and I created this lore around a man who creates a prototype, like a cyborgian replica of himself or his wife, because his wife had the same complaints as me, like, you used to be this, you used to be this. And so he creates this prototype. His wife elopes with the prototype. And that's how I created the idea for the cyborgs that exist in the world. They're called CODS, CODS, which is an acronym for Cyborgian Operative Decoy. And so I conceptualized the world of the show first, and then the concept for like these three women came about as I extrapolated pieces of ideas I've accumulated over the past, prior to creating the show, like 5 years. And each of the characters are a bit of, they're each inspired by a piece of me, and how I've navigated, my own personal life, and putting it all within the sci-fi universe has just allowed me to really exaggerate, and push the boundaries of these relatable circumstances.
So cool, because it's like not just one thing, but this whole universe that you're telling me. So cool. So the show features three Black women as the head protagonist for the first time in an Adult Swim animated series. So how important was that to break that barrier?
Oh, super important. I think going in, I didn't even know that that was the barrier I was breaking. Like when I was pitching it, I had no idea that that was the case. And then once I found out that that was, I saw it as an opportunity to show how dimensional and even multi-dimensional women of color are, because oftentimes in mass media, at least when I grew up, you know, I didn't grow up seeing a lot of Black women, not just, I mean, I saw them on TV, but the light in which they were portrayed, those lights were very narrow, those margins were very slim. There was always some sort of stereotype or cast or cast type that we were fitting, or typecast rather, that we were fitting. You know, have you ever seen the movie The Fifth Element with Bruce Willis?
Yeah.
I mean, seeing this woman who was like basically like the key to the universe. You know what I mean? I've never seen anything like that for Black women. So with this opportunity to create a show, I saw it as an opportunity to, again, break those barriers, to show that we can be several things at once, and that we're not a monolith, and that we're not, you know, there are a lot of us that are very alternative and, you know, silly and outspoken and all the things that we see a lot of white female characters get to be portrayed as in mass media. So yeah, and so far it's been, the reception's been really great. A lot of Black women have been like, you know what, I've never seen anything like this before. And that's really exciting and really refreshing.
Yeah. Oh, congratulations. I'm just so happy to see this show. I don't know. I was watching saying, "Oh my God, yes." So the series, as the name says, is filled with these extremely relatable circumstances. And it's a wild ride with a lot of message behind that. I feel like that a lot of times I feel like you have to watch twice to digest because it's so fast.
Yeah.
And the episodes are so short. And I especially love the references to motherhood. So I wanted to ask you about what is the inspiration or your experience behind it.
Oh, so the are you're referring to the first episode?
Yes.
Or just all of them in general? Yeah.
Yeah, but then you have an episode when she like loses her uterus, and then like in general.
Yeah. You know, so I'll start with the uterus episode.
Okay.
Which was written by a phenomenal writer by the name of Kimberly Walker. Of course, myself and other writers kind of helped break the story. She took it to script. But I'm a woman who, when people ask me if I want to have children, I'm always like, maybe, if I'm inspired. Motherhood has never been something I really, really wanted. You know, it was never on the top of the to-do list as a woman, of course, but we live in a world that tells us, well, it should be. We live in a world that tells women, like, being a mother is your purpose. You know, like, being a mother is what you're here to do. So I just wanted to imagine a world where, you know, my belief around that, right? My frame of mind around motherhood and it being optional, and it being optional, being encouraged, is a world where the thing you need to have a child, when you want it, you can use it. When you don't, you can take it out. It's that simple, you know? And, you know, having this character, Sunny, wanted at the most for her, in her mind, opportune moment. Of course, very, very self-centered reasons at the end of the day, but, you know, why not? Allowance by like a wealthy ball player. And the You Fools episode, the first one, where Sunny kicks the baby out the window, that one's pretty heavy. And that one,
it's so wild. Just first episode in the show, and already all of that happened, and you're like, what?
Yeah, we just throw you right into the middle of it. And, you know, I feel like we've all experienced what it's like to have a parent project their desires onto us, their expectations, the kind of person they believe we especially mothers. I mean, they carried us for 9 months. So when we come out kind of marching to the beat of our own drums and singing our own melodies, it can be very, you know, jarring for a parent. And most parents don't handle that very well. Most parents will shame you for not being in agreement with them, or wanting to become a doctor. You want to become a rapper, but you know, they're like, you should, or you want to become an artist. I feel like a lot of artists kind of experience that, like wanting to be a creative and their parent feeling like there's no future or promise in that. And oftentimes parents don't have the tools to communicate how they're feeling when a child tells them, I'm not who you expect me to be. And I experienced that in the form of like rejection. And so in this world where we're dealing with relatable circumstances, but we're taking the very absurd, exaggerated version of that circumstance, I had Sunny do what my mother would have done in this world, of course, not the real one, which is put me out the window. Because Sunny, of course, in the beginning, she's like, this is going to be the savior of the world. This is the Messiah. And then when the baby's born, it's like, I got news for you. I'm here to destroy the world. And she's like, absolutely not. Like, fuck you, you know?
Yes. I love that so much.
Yeah.
Is that what you said about the tools that the parents don't have? It is just so important. Amen to that. It's like parents are not prepared for dealing with this stuff.
Right, exactly.
Just not prepared, because no one asks you to have, you know, like a license to have a kid.
There's no training.
Yes.
There's no training. And that's something I've been talking about recently with my partner is, you know, just how relationships in general are difficult. Romantic ones can be difficult. You know, imagine how, and the triggers that come up for us, what people trigger within us, what they bring up. Imagine how often a parent is triggered by their child. They're probably the most, you know what I mean? I never thought about that. Like, wow, like I'm sure, you know, when my mother's no longer with us. She passed away in 2006, but I'm sure myself and my siblings like triggered her a lot. And she didn't know, her being born from a generation that didn't have therapy, you know, or didn't believe in therapy rather. She didn't know what to do. You know.
I think this is so important and interesting, because I experienced this from the perspective of daughter, and now I'm like experiencing it from the perspective of mother, because I have kids on my own. And I like seeing all of it is like, it's so complex what the children trigger. It's so exciting and interesting to explore.
I'm sure they challenge you. I don't have a child, but I can only imagine, you know. But that's why they say they're our greatest teachers, or anyone that we love can teach us something about ourselves, you know?
Yeah, totally. So can you talk about the creative decisions behind the show's animation style and overall aesthetics?
Yeah, so the basis of the aesthetic, the basis of the inspiration was derived from my comics, the comics that I would draw and put on my social media, the comics that I would draw and I would put on these solo art exhibits throughout LA. And that was like the basis. And then a team of character designers and animators and storyboard artists took those designs and made them, animatable, because my style is very like flat, very one-dimensional. And so I worked with a studio named 6 Point Harness. They're based here in Los Angeles, California, US. And they just had this wonderful team who contributed so many ideas. So many of the ideas in terms of design and world building weren't mine. You know, it's such a collaborative process, you know, and that's something that people tend to forget about animation, and just filmmaking in general, is how it's not something that's done on an island. There's so many little decisions that seem small, but they're big, that create large impacts, and leave significant impressions on the show. And two of my directors, Brian and Greg Franklin, they were just unbelievably just insightful. And even the voice actors, what they brought to the characters, So many of just thank God for them. They're all so talented, so funny, so able to, improv in the booth. And they brought things to the characters that they brought elements and idiosyncrasies to the characters that weren't a part of the, and when they would go off script, it would just inspire new ideas for the animators and the designers.
Wow. That's like where the magic happens. It was my next question about the incredible actors you worked with, like Dominic Perry and Saoirse Rockmore and Chris Summer. How did you select the voice talent for the show, and how was the process? But you told me already it was really cool and with improv.
Really cool. Yeah, there was a huge audition for the 3 leads. I had to audition also because I'm Sunny, and I had to.
Yeah.
People assume because I'm the creator of the show that I was just able to. Adele was like, "No, you need to audition." I was like, "Okay." I made it. But yeah, no, everyone was. Geez, I mean, the auditioning process was long. It was tedious. We got we had a lot of people send in their sides. I had to sift through so many voices. At the time, we had a casting director on the project for the pilot who helped me kind of select like the top 50, and then from there we'd go 20 and then 10. And once we went into series development, we had a casting company, Jackie Solito's company, Jackie and Christy, who were so good, full of so many good ideas, because some of the casting decisions so I made the decision on casting the leads. Zosha, Lottie, myself, Bill Lobley, who is my secret weapon. Bill Lobley has voiced so many characters. The episode that aired last night, he's like 5 different voices in that. He's just, I love Bill Lobley. Gary Anthony Williams, who's a legend. They're both legends, him and Bill. And of course myself and Zosha and Dominique. But the casting company, the casting directors rather, they came in and they would have these wonderful suggestions for the guest stars for each episode. They suggested Keith Powers. I would have never, that wasn't my idea. Keith David was their idea. I was like, oh, okay, that's a wonderful idea. Chris Parnell.
I was going to say that one.
They were like, what about Chris Parnell? You want Chris Parnell? I was like, yeah, I want Chris Parnell.
Who doesn't?
Sure. Tristan Winger, I forgot to mention Tristan Winger. He was someone I casted as well. He's talented. We don't see a lot of him in the first season, but he's Jamal. He voices all the Jamals in the episode that aired last week. But yeah, the casting directors were just knights in shining armor. They brought so much color and genius, even with the finale. The season finale is airing next week, and Deborah Wilson is casted as Sunny's mother.
Wow.
I never thought Deborah Wilson from Mad TV. They were like, what about Deborah Wilson? She's good. I was like, oh, okay. Like,
yeah, if you say so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Given your background in both writing and animation, how do you approach blending these 2 elements together to craft your narrative for an animated series?
Well, I don't animate, but I do illustrate. And how do I blend both together? That's kind of the fun in animation, where you can, it's kind of it's similar with horror, I think. And people wonder, like, how are the 2 related? With animation, you're able to take an idea, a grounded concept or story, and allow it to dwell in the hyperbole. You can take this and go like that with it in ways that I think, of course, with the way technology is changing, you can do in animation, you can do in live action as well, but animation it allows it for a departure from the norm in a way that, allows a bit of escapism, and I think there's a way. I forgot who said this. I think it was the director of the Pinocchio film, whose name I'm blanking on, but when he won the Academy for Pinocchio, it's one of the best animated features.
Guillermo del Toro.
He said, animation is, a medium, not a genre. So oftentimes when people think animation, they think cartoons.
Yeah.
Like, no, animation is just a way in which you can tell a story. It's just a style of storytelling. Like, and that's what I've been learning because I was someone who didn't always believe that. Not that I was against it, but I was like most people. Animation is cartoons about the silly and the funny and shouldn't be taken seriously. But what I've been learning and what I've been grateful to experience is how deep you can go when using this medium, when harnessing this medium, and how the color and the beauty of animation, how it can allow you to have it can allow you to dissociate a bit, right? When something is animated. And I feel like when that's the case, you have room to have harder conversations with the stories you tell when it's animated. It's a bit more easy to metabolize, to digest when something is animated. And so I've been able to do that, in particular with the last 2 episodes, the one that just aired Sunday and the finale as well.
I love that.
The finale is pretty dark.
It's pretty dark? Oh. I'm waiting for it already.
It's funny, but it's pretty heavy.
Oh, you're creating such a feeling. I want to watch it right now. Adult Swim has a history of like pushing boundaries with animation. How do you think this show, oh my god, yes, fits into that tradition?
I feel like, I'm not really sure if this season, if the boundaries were pushed. I'm not sure if the boundaries were pushed. I do believe the boundary that was pushed was, bringing me on as a showrunner and allowing an all-Black female lead cast to be at the helm of this show on a network that, where shows the majority of their shows appeal to a much younger white male demographic. And so I think even just giving this show a chance was a boundary push. The animation, I feel like, once we get a season 2, hopefully if we get a season 2, I think we'll be able to push the boundaries even further. But if I have to be honest, I feel like we played it a little safe with the style of animation this season. I think they were more focused on, I think what they wanted to prioritize was my voice and the ensemble feel of the show, because it started off, I don't know if I'm not sure how much you remember of the pilot, but the show started off as a very Sunny centered show. Sunny was like front and center, everything was about her, and Lottie and Tulip were more like these tertiary background characters, and after the pilot aired, they decided they wanted to be a bit more of an ensemble cast. And so I think this season was really, they wanted to focus on more of like the world building, getting the audience familiar with these 3 characters and how they navigate the world together. And we didn't get really nuts with the animation style. I think next season we will.
You have already confirmed second season?
Oh no, I'm fingers crossed.
Okay, fingers crossed. I was thinking, news.
Fingers crossed.
Okay. A question for fun. If you could have one character from this show live in your world for a day, who would you pick and why?
If I could have one of these characters live in my world for a day, who would I pick and why? I would pick Warren Macy Tom. And here's why. He was just on the season that the baker.
Yeah.
because he's capable of baking. Well, I don't know, his pastries are a little questionable after seeing what it did to Tulip. But I would want him to, if I could have him, if he was here for a day, we would just concoct some pastries, some sweet treats that had like really awesome side effects. Like if he could make a pastry that could make me like wealthy or clean my house or, you know, I don't know. That's what I would do, because I would have Warren Macy Tom, because he bakes some pretty magical treats.
Good
I would put him
choice.
to work. The whole 24 hours, we would not hang out. He would be in the kitchen, slaving in the kitchen. And I would have to freeze, even if he just made the dough for some of it. We would just wrap it in saran wrap, put it in the freezer. You know what I'm saying? I could bake it a few months from now. That's what I would have.
Okay, good choice. I can see that. Which moment in the show makes you laugh the most, even after all the hard work of creating it?
I'm gonna reference this past Sunday's episode again. When Sunny has her Botox, and every time I see her face, I end up in tears. Like, I don't know what it is. The design on her just the eyebrows, the smile, the cheeks, always makes me laugh. And I would say that's the one that's oh, and the episode 23andMe with Jamal, when Sunny's making all the Jamals, and when she asks for a man that's masculine and traditional.
Yeah.
Cowboy pulls her in. He says, "Caught your ass, varmint." That always makes me laugh. That always makes me.
Yeah, that was good. So, you told me that fingers crossed we will have a second season, and I wanted to ask what's next for you, both in terms of this show and your future creative projects, if you have any other.
Yeah, so with this show, I'm excited to, thinking about your question about pushing the boundaries of animation. I always wanted to bring in a more mixed media approach with the show, bring in some, a bit of hyperrealism, some like live action elements, similar to like the Amazing World of Gumball.
Okay.
Like maybe not full-fledged, because, we have our own style at this point. And I'm excited to get more nuance with the show if we're given a season two, to maybe slow it down a tad, but to get even more nuance and more granular with the conversations that's being had. And we're also going to flesh out the characters a bit more, because I know right now we kind of just threw people into the world and into these characters and their friendship, but I'm excited to get into the genesis of the world, how it came to be what it is, why these cyborgs roam, why there's a president vending machine, and what makes each of these girls tick, why they are the way they are. We get a bit of that in the season finale of season 1. And as far as my other projects, yeah, I have some stuff in the pipeline. I can't really talk about it right now, but I have a couple of animated projects and a live action.
Wow.
Yeah, that's in the works.
So I will contact you to talk about new projects when they're out.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Yep, definitely. You hear about them.
Oh, Adele, this was so much fun. I mean,
Yeah.
I knew I was going to love the conversation with you, because I feel like you're the person I was going to love, but it just was more. Thank you so much.
So good. Thank you
so much
Thank
for
you
your
having me.
time, and best of luck with this show and whatever you're going to do, because I don't know, you're so great and wonderful. You're going to find a way.
Thank you so much.
Lots of kisses. Thank you so much.
Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Bye. Night. Have a nice day.
You too.
Bye.